Hi, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to go ahead and get or use the Ornaments and Crime quantum main to go ahead and tune or quantize the English tier. The first thing I'm going to go ahead and show you, this is the patch that I've got set up for it to work. I've got the keyboard CV out going to the processor B of the English tier, the Hz volts in for the processor B, and I've got the log converter then going into the voltage octaves out going to the Ornaments and Crime trigger input CV input 1, and then I have the Ornaments and Crime A output, which is the CV output that's been quantized, going into my Dixie control, which is then, or you can plug it into the Volt Octive and the oscillator. Actually, let me go ahead and do that, because then it'll make it easier for you guys to see everything. You don't need to know what the Dixie control does. So it's going to go into my volts per octave in my Dixie 2. Then I have the saw wave going out to an attenuator, my MIGs, and it's just an attenuator. If you don't have an attenuator, you don't need to use this. You can actually just plug this directly into the external signal in, but I am using the attenuator because then I can adjust the volume of my Dixie 2 to the other volumes I have here on the MS-20. So let me go ahead and play it. You can get, if you know, because it's an analog system, the Harvestman does a pretty good job in getting most of them in tune for the entire range of the keyboard for all 3 octaves. Almost. Because some of the keys are going to be out of tune. Usually it's going to be on the end. It's going to be these two or these two on the bottom. I've been able to get the entire keyboard in tune a few times, but it's actually quite difficult to do that. So this is going to make it so you get most of the keys in tune. And then I'm going to go ahead and play it with and without the quantizer. So another way you can do it, FYI, is you can go ahead and use a voltmeter. I used this voltmeter initially, and I just got a headphone jack from an old electric cello I had that I took apart, and you can go ahead and use this jack to go ahead and measure the volts. And basically what you want to go ahead and do is make sure that the volts here are going to match up. The Hertz volts going in is going to match up with the volts going out, volts octaves going out. And let me go ahead and explain that really quickly, because that is a little bit confusing to a lot of people. So the MS-20 uses a Hertz volts conversion versus the Eurorack system and Moog and other the Oberheim and some other synthesizers use the volts per octave system. And sorry if I'm mispronouncing Moog. I'm sure there's people that are going to say something about that. But anyways, in terms of this, when you play the C codes, the C notes on the MS-20, they're going to be exponential. So this is outputting from the CV keyboard out, and you can measure this. It's going to be 1 volt, then it doubles to the next octave. So it's going to go ahead and be 1 volt for the first C1, 2 volts for C2, and then 4 volts for C3. So everything going in here is going to go ahead and be 1 volt, 2 volt, and then this is going to be 4 volts. And this is going to be 8 volts. So you need to transpose those into volts per octave. And the volts per octave is a lot simpler, because C1 is going to be 1 volt, 2 volts, 3 volts, and 4 volts versus 1, 2, 4, and 8. So I can show you guys that that's what's occurring. Let me unplug this, and I'll plug it into my voltmeter here. And I'm going to go ahead and play the notes. This is C1, so that is 1 volt. will be 2 volts. This will be 4 volts, and over here will be 8 volts, and it's slightly off. It's 0.01% off, or 0.01 volts off, but it's close enough. And then what you're gonna, if you have a voltmeter, you can then tune these 2 knobs here to as close to these numbers. So you're going to want to go ahead and get it as the C1, you're going to want to get it as close to 1 volt as possible. Let me see if that's okay. Here we go. Oh, oops, yeah, I'm not in the right. There we go. Okay, so it's close. So you can adjust the parameter on the left, or you want to adjust your B, the big knob, first. So the way this works is the attenuator on the English Tear, it's actually quite neat because you could actually go negative voltage as well as positive voltage. And what you can do is for the left notes, because you can't really, well, I guess you could, but for the left notes, you're going to want to go ahead and use the B knob to go ahead and try to get this as close to 1 as possible. And then for C, you're going to want to get it as close to 2 as possible. And then you're going to adjust this. And every time you adjust, the sucky part is every time you adjust this voltage this way, it shifts what you did to the left a little bit. So you got to keep going back and forth between the two to try to hit some sort of a happy ground. So C1, you're going to want to keep it at 1 volt. C2, you're going to try to keep it at 2 volts. C3, you're going to try to keep it at 3 volts. And then C4, you're going to try to keep it at 4 volts. Now, you're going to want to get that as close as possible. You don't need to use a voltmeter. You can do it by ear. But using the voltmeter makes it easier to start, because at that point what the quantizer is going to go ahead and do is the quantizer is going to snap those notes to where it's supposed to be. So it being slightly out of tune, it's going to go ahead and snap it back into tune. So let me disconnect the voltmeter. Whoops, it's my mini brute. Plug this guy back in. So let's see how close it is now. Oh, well, I didn't turn up. Now you're gonna see it's out of tune. So what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna adjust, and you barely need to touch it. You barely touch it in. So I usually start off at the low C, and you're basically playing, I'm going to be playing scales up and down until I start tuning it by ear. So again, because I shifted this knob, I have to go back down because it's gonna. So as you can tell, you're always going to have 1 or 2 notes that aren't going to, well, not always. I've been able to do it so that the entire keyboard is in tune, but it's rare. And you're seeing that this key before was out of tune, and it's going in and out of tune because it's fluctuating as the oscillators warm up. I've had this sit out for about 15 minutes, so it should be pretty stable, but you know, it's analog stuff. Now it's pretty much in tune, so I'll go ahead and, except for these last two notes. Yeah, so it's like this one and this might not be in tune, but everything else seems to be. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and play it with just the English Tear so you guys could see what that sounds like. So to do that, all you need to do is unplug this and then plug this into the Volt Octive. And you're going to see the English Tear almost gets it there, but it's just... So towards the end, usually my English Tear, everyone's might be different, but it usually gets maybe 2 octaves somewhat in tune. So you guys can hear that. It starts to go more out of tune as you go down. So the difference is this is without the Ornaments and Crime, and then with the Ornaments and Crime, well, without Ornaments and Crime, and with the Ornaments and Crime, it makes a pretty huge difference. So these last 2 notes aren't going to be in tune, but everything else is going to be right on. And then you got to adjust. There you go. So the last 2 notes are always going to be hard to get it to, but and that's not because of the Ornaments and Crime, it's actually because of the Harvestman. The Harvestman, you know, is going to be more, it means that the Harvestman is more than half a semitone or half an octave off on these 2 end notes, and so there's no, the Ornaments and Crime is going to shift it to the other note. So the Ornaments and Crime is an amazing tool. I love it. I just got it yesterday and I've been playing with it. In terms of, I'm actually not feeling well today, but I wanted to shoot this video to get out to you guys so that you guys can see that you guys can use the Ornaments and Crime to go ahead and shift the notes for the English Tear. One more thing I wanted to make is this is version 1.2. So this is the brand new version that was just released maybe 4 days ago. And I wanted to thank MX for go ahead and doing that. It's an amazing thing that you guys have done with this thing, and I love it, and I wish you guys the best.